Good afternoon, good evening, good morning to all of you. Thank you very much for joining us today for this event on space for the Great Reset towards a fair, responsible and sustainable access to space to reduce inequalities. My name is Veronica Cesco and I'm going to be your moderator. Before we start, just a couple of things. The video has been recorded and will later be published on our YouTube channel. I would kindly ask our participants and attendees to keep their camera on only when speaking, please, and to keep it switched off during the rest of the session. We will proceed as follows. We will have, first of all, introductory remarks from Director Di Pippo, and then we will have a series of remarks and presentations from our speakers that are joining us from different parts of the world. We will have after that a series of questions, and we will take also questions from the chat. So for any questions that you have for our speakers, please you can write the question directly in our chat. So I would say we can start. Just one last element. This event is actually the last and conclusive event of the Space for the Great Reset event series. We are really happy to have conducted the other two events at the beginning of this year. And with that, I would like to leave the floor to Director Di Pippo. Thank you, Director, for being with us today, and the floor is yours now.
Thank you, Veronica. It's really a pleasure for me to welcome you to the last event of our Space for the Great Reset series. Well, throughout this series, we looked at how the space sector contributes to the pandemic recovery to build a resilient, more inclusive and sustainable world. Starting from the space economy and its role in fostering resilient economies and sustainable growth, through the use of space to tackle climate change, to access to space to reduce inequalities. We build upon the Great Reset concept of the World Economic Forum to rethink our future and build back better through space and its countless benefits. The fallout of the pandemic has been severe. It has taken a toll of human life with almost 5.3 million deaths. And unfortunately, figures keep growing globally. National and local economies, employment, health services, access to education, all have taken hits. But what is the most worrying is that the tragedy of the COVID-19 pandemic is also a sad story of inequality. Not all countries and communities have been impacted in the same way. Estimates suggest that more than 120 million people have been pushed into extreme poverty globally, especially in countries that were already struggling economically, socially, and politically. Whether it is direct access to healthcare or to technology, inequality is a multi-dimensional challenge that represents an impediment for progress at local, regional, and global level. To overcome disparities, we need to act now, jointly and on all fronts. All of us share one planet, the only one we can call home, at least for the time being. No matter the age, gender, race, or religion, we are part of one human civilization. And we all look up to the same sky at night, the painting that not only holds the secrets of our origins and the history of the universe, but also reveals the intimate connection between living beings and stars. We are all the same, and yet not all of us are treated equally. Significant inequalities exist across the board of daily lives, in careers and education, in economic opportunities. In the space sector itself, we have much work to do. Women currently represent only between 20 and 22% of the workforce, and the share falls further when we look at human spaceflight. Only 11% of female astronauts have actually made it to space. Likewise, people with disabilities are encountering considerable challenges to working in and with space, not to mention the broader lack of access to space-related infrastructures and advantages in some countries. We at UNUSA are devoted to advancing SDG number 10, reduced inequalities, by fostering a fair, responsible, and sustainable access to space. With our numerous programs, we provide opportunities to countries to increase their knowledge and expertise on space science, space technologies, and its applications. Our Access to Space for All initiative, a flagship triangular cooperation endeavor, has already helped 3 UN member states to launch their first ever satellites and become part of the list of spacefaring nations. 2 more satellites, as the winners of the later rounds, are expected to fly in 2022, so stay tuned. We also strive to bridge the inequalities in the STEM and the space sector, actively promoting the inclusion of women, youth, children, persons with disabilities, and aim to reach underserved communities. Through our Space for Women program, we created a network of over 70 women mentors. Through Space for Youth, we amplified the voices of almost 1,000 young people from over 80 countries. We are currently offering an internship opportunity to work on our project Space for People with Disabilities, and we look forward to implementing our newest initiative, Kids Reaching Stars. With all our initiatives, we fully embrace the UN motto, leave no one behind. For UNUSA, access to space means providing opportunities to everyone everywhere and promoting equality among people and nations. There is no better way to learn than through real-life experiences. Our panelists today will share their own unique stories on how they have benefited from or how they promote access to space to spread its advantages across communities. I'm sure that their accounts will inspire us. Reducing inequalities is paramount. With these direct and indirect contributions, space has a pivotal role to play in our endeavors to make our societies more inclusive and diverse. Despite its vastness, space can bring us closer, and only by working together we can address disparities globally. With strong commitments and bold actions, we can build back better. Without further ado, I will leave the floor to our speakers, and I'm looking forward to hearing their inspiring stories. Thank you very much again for being with us.
Thank you very much, Director, for your remarks. I would like now to invite our speakers. So I will first of all will briefly introduce them, and after that I will ask the speakers to briefly introduce themselves and go ahead with their story and presentation. So we will have today with us Malek Abdullah, winner of the 2021 UNUSA SJC Space for Youth competition. We have with us also Beatrice Garcia, astronomer and coordinator of the International Comparative List of Astronomical Terms in Sign Language. We have Susan Muravana Owen, CEO and co-founder of the Traveling Telescope and Space for Women Mentor. Jorge de Rio Vera, Scientific Affairs Officer in charge of the UNUSA Access to Space for All initiative. Jose Eduardo Mendoza Torres, Project Coordinator and awardee of the United Nations China Cooperation on the Utilization of the China Space Station. And last but not least, Carlos Enrique Alvaredo, Project Coordinator and awardee of the UN-Japan Cooperation Program on CubeSat deployment from the ISS, KiboCube. Thank you very much to all of you. We have really a lot of speakers joining us with today. And indeed, we will, the director has already said, we will hear some stories and some accounts of how these speakers in this case have benefited from access to space to the space sector, but at the same time, how they are promoting access to space. So really, and all of this will be done in the context of reducing inequalities. So how can access to space in different ways reduce inequalities? So I will give the floor now to our first speaker, Malek. If you'd like also to briefly introduce yourself, the floor is yours. I would love to hear more about your story, and please go ahead.
Hello, so am I introducing myself and starting, or just introducing myself now?
You can introduce yourself and also start to tell us your story.
Okay, cool. So hello, everyone. My name is Malek Abdullah. I'm so delighted and honored to be here, first of all, with you today. I'm based in California. I'm also from here. I'm studying human biology at the University of California in San Diego. However, one of my newfound passions and learning interests has been in space research and technology. And as I talk a little bit more about myself and my experiences, you'll see a lot about how my passion and what I'm actually studying in school kind of overlap, and how important it is that these two subjects overlap. I'm also one of the 3 2021 Space for Youth essay competition winners. My essay touched heavily on my project, which my team and I developed and sent to the International Space Station, and the results that we saw upon its arrival from the International Space Station. And so in a nutshell, my essay targeted the theme of the competition, which was climate change mitigation and adaptation in space, by explicating my experience of working on this project, which intertwined the studies of biology, of environment, and space, which we were able to develop and send up to the ISS. And so my essay really, what it did is explore these ideas and the results of the experiment, and importantly, potential next steps that can be taken through innovative space technological approaches. And so while a part of my essay highlighted the results of this experiment, I think the more important aspect of it all is that I was able to introduce this kind of new idea of potentially taking genetically modified bacterial growth on a carbon dioxide based diet and incorporate that into carbon dioxide scrubbing technology that could be used on the International Space Station. And so after having finished the experiment and coming up to the final stages of the 2021 Space for Youth journey, I realized that an equally significant facet behind all of this is for me to be able to kind of sit back and reflect on how important it was that I was exposed to one such opportunity like this for myself in the first place, to learn more about the space sector and end up, actually sending an experiment of my own as a part of this learning process to be conducted on the International Space Station. And my entire journey in this field began with my initial interest in a local competition, which only high school and undergraduate students were allowed to participate in, that took place for the first time during the end of my senior year of high school in Kuwait. And Kuwait is where I completed my middle and high school years. I remember being shocked that Kuwait, the small Gulf country in the Middle East, was even being considered as having the potential of sending something to space, let alone allowing the youth be the first to bring the country's name up to space. My surprise really only heightened when my partner and I pitched our experiment idea to the panel of judges during the local competition, also known as Experiment in Space. And we were selected and claimed as the winners, and ended up 1 year later actually developing and sending the experiment to be conducted on the ISS, where it was conducted by astronaut Shannon Walker. I was even able to fly out to NASA's Kennedy Space Center and actually watch the launch take place, right before my eyes as I stood right beside the vehicle assembly building. And for all of this to take place in just the span of 1 year, one could understand where my initial sense of shock and surprise emerged from. But the point of the matter is the fact that I think we should not be taken aback by opportunities like these when they come our way, because opportunities like these, they do exist. I should not have been shocked or in any way doubtful at the beginning of this process, just because of the idea of this being too good to be true or so far out of reach. Kuwait, a country that started with not even a minor space program, has now developed and sent its very own satellite into orbit, which only goes to show that the voices and the potential of youth are far more influential and powerful than we believe or think it might be. And so after our experiment had come back to NASA and our results were analyzed, and it was found that E. coli was actually able to sequester carbon dioxide in space, this called for the real-life significance of the research, which emerged from the fact that microbes and bacteria like E. coli, built to rely on carbon dioxide for growth, could ultimately and eventually aid in reducing global warming by decreasing the carbon dioxide concentration levels in the air. And now that we have proven that E. coli could consume carbon dioxide in space, that's when I thought it was time to take the research a step forward and see what's next, for this research, for this experiment. A strain of E. coli that is able to consume carbon dioxide could help us sustain life in space, as it could be a part of carbon dioxide scrubbing technology, which could be found in certain space settings like the International Space Station. This could also set the stage for the development of the scrubbing technology using modified bacteria in areas with that might have higher quantities of carbon dioxide, which only proves helpful to our overall spacecraft and Earth environment, believe it or not, in the long run. And so what I did is I took this idea and I explicated it along with my experience in this experiment in the Space for Youth essay competition and the events that I was introduced to through it as an opportunity to share my experience and hopefully communicate the message that we can majorly and significantly benefit from our access to space. It isn't until people start actually realizing that the level of accessibility that we have to space that we can start benefiting and seeing a brighter future at the community and the global level. This access to space, however, comes, and it must be an opportunity that anyone from, the youth to the older ages and anywhere, communities and nations, big or small, can embrace. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Malek, for telling us a bit more about yourself and the experiments and the fantastic experiments you conducted. Congratulations on that. Sounds really inspiring. Maybe now I'd like to ask our next speaker in this case, we're going to Beatrice. Are you able to join us?
Yes, I believe so. I'm here. Thank you very much. I am very happy to be here. I will speak in the name of the people who has not voice, because the idea is to show a proposal for that people. For example, now I can say, hello, how are you? I am very, very happy to be here. Today is a nice day and we are speaking in sign language. So if I can share with you my screen, I will introduce a few things. Oh, I cannot. Give me a moment just to see if I can share the screen or not. Probably not. I don't know.
Beatrice, let's try to see maybe if Lisa has it.
Okay, please, Lisa, if you can show the first slide, I can speak. Please go as faster as I am speaking. Well, this presentation is about the Hands in the Stars. It's a long-term project, and we have a lot of people cooperating. I know that Amelia Ortiz is here between the people in the room. So it was an idea to include more people in the field of the science and technology. And as we can see in the next slide, it's a long-term proposal developed or devoted to make more accessible the space for the deaf people through the sign language. In the next slide, please go ahead. Yes. But what is inclusion and equity? Well, you have several main focus on this topic. You have to treat the diversity, all the people, all the perspectives, the equity in policies, practices, and the position of the people, include the people via the power, the voices, and the organizational culture to assure the equal rights and equitable opportunities. In the next slide, we can see that the idea of this proposal is not very recent. It was based in a background. It's a project funded by the International Astronomical Union, in which the same language universal encyclopedic dictionary, as we can see in the next one, was translated to from the original one. Click again, because in this book you have a lot of words in sign language, a lot of astronomical terms, and was proposed by Dominique Proust as part of the International Year of Astronomy. But in the next slide, we can see that the funded project was had as a first goal translate this encyclopedic dictionary to French, from French to English and Spanish. So to produce a whole set of tools to approach the sign language, because the sign language has his own vocabulary, grammar, and express in all the communication registers as the mathematics. But as you can see in this slide, and it's really incredible, only was officially recognized in Europe and many parts of the world at the end of the 20th century. So, recognized as a language. So, for example, some deaf artists. These are a few examples. And the next slide, we can see a few scientists, deaf scientists. For us, the astronomers, permit me to mention mainly Annie Cannon, the creator of the stellar classification system, and Henrietta Levy, discovered of a relationship to determine distances in the cosmos. And as part of these people, we know that many deaf scientists are part of the community. Next slide. And as this language has his own body of structure, all can be expressed with hands. And the space can be accessible for everyone if we include more tools for deaf people. Next slide can show you the first comparative list of astronomical terms. It was released in 2017 with 47 terms in 31 languages, more than the countries, because the language, the sign language, is part of the culture. So for the French in France, the French in Quebec, for example, or the English in United Kingdom or USA or India, you have different signs. In the next slide, we can see that the proposal included a common accessible interactive sheet in Google Drive, and the interaction between the different language and the comparison between the different countries can be possible. The next slide can see or reinforce the thing that the astronomy is one of the fields where the expression in sign language is both rigorous and poetic. So, for example, if you can represent the moon, you can make this sign in general, or you can mark your face, the faces of the moon. And if you can represent, yes, next one, the sun, you can put the object on the sky, in the sky, and you can transmit the energy with your fingers. If you join these two words, these two terms in sign language, you can represent an eclipse. So the next slide, go ahead, because based on these characteristics, you can analyze similarities, differences, and also you can notice that there are some specific terms in astronomy that you cannot represent with sign language. So the idea is to propose to create new signs. Now, well, here is a video, but we have not enough time to show the video to compare the terms. This will be a homework because the presentation will be available for all. Let's go to the next one. I invite you to revise this video because to determine the difference and similar aspects is very, very interesting. The second comparative list, a previous one, thank you. The second comparative list was released this year and include 38 new terms, more complex, because the first list included very simple terms like sun, moon, phases of the moon, orbit, ecliptics, and so on. The most common astronomical terms in education in general. But this year we advanced a little and we propose new and more complex terms as black holes, archaeoastronomy, astrobiology, gravity, space stations, satellites. So the idea is to increase this list, to grow in resources, because as we can see in the next one, the idea is, next slide, please. No, no, a previous one. The idea is to show that the proposal, original thought for death is good for all. The idea to produce resources is not a fully explored thing and has a social demand and a positive impact in the audiences. The experience allows to join people in a cooperative work, and in this cooperation produce new things, but also mutual learning and training of specialized human resources, because not all the people has access to internet, as we know, and we learn from these past 2 COVID years. Finally, the access to the space can reduce inequalities and support building more inclusive and fair societies. Yes, we have needs and we have the way to produce tools and resources which permit to a collaboration between different sectors, backgrounds, nationalities, gender, and ages. And this is part of our proposal, to make accessible the space. The space is only one, and we are just dust in the immensity. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Beatrice. It's really fantastic, the work that you're doing, and really congratulations for what you're trying to achieve with this specific project. And maybe later we can try to show the video if we have some time. So I'll ask Lisa maybe later to do that once we're done with our participants. But thank you again. Now we are actually going, you see, and of course, this clearly shows how even for us it can be difficult. It really gives an idea of the problem. So thanks a lot for sharing that. Okay, so let's go now to Susan Murabana Owen. So Susan, as I was mentioning before, she's CEO and co-founder of the Traveling Telescope, and she's also a Space for Women mentor. Let's see if Susan is with us. Okay, I don't see Susan as a speaker right now, so she might have dropped. Then let's see. Okay, while we try to get Susan back on the line, then I would go to our next speaker. It's Jorge de Riovera, as I was mentioning before, Scientific Affairs Officer here at UNUSA and in charge of the Access to Space for All initiative, and he will tell us about a bit more about what we are doing at UNUSA to provide access to space.
Good afternoon. Good evening, good morning. I actually see Susan Veronica in the list of guests.
I just saw the message, so it's just she needs to be. Let's see. But well, I would say we can go ahead with you, Jorge, and then Susan can start. Susan, thank you for your patience and apologies. Okay, let's talk with Jorge first, and then we go ahead with you. Thank you again.
Oh, thank you, Veronica. Thank you very much for the invitation, for being here. It's really a pleasure. As Veronica was saying, I'm Jorge del Rio Vera. I'm working in the United Nations Office for Outer Space Affairs, and I'm working in a very special initiative that we have in the office that is called Access to Space for All. And what we are trying to do with that initiative is basically what the name says, is to provide opportunities to access facilities and research infrastructure to institutions that are all over the world that might have difficulties in accessing that infrastructure or those facilities. I was asked by Veronica to share a story, and I can share my own story on how I became coordinator of Access to Space for All. Actually, the story started when I was a kid, and you have heard from our director that we are working on projects to involve kids because that's very important. And exactly because I also started when I was a kid. I was, I mean, I wouldn't say my age, but I'm on the generation that saw the space shuttle going to space, and there was a lot of developments and a lot of hype on those times. Actually, when I was a kid, I was looking very eagerly in the newspaper, in the local newspaper of my home city, when there were news about the space, and I was reading that. I mean, when I was a kid, I wanted to grow and become an astronaut, which I tried, but I didn't succeed. And actually, that little thing, I mean, the desire of becoming an astronaut, being able to watch in television the launch of space shuttles, and having access to newspapers or other resources that were explaining things about space was what was motivating me to become who I am today and to working where I am working today. You cannot underestimate, and I was very pleased to hear Malek talking about especially programs that are devoted to young people and to youth. Very small gestures, like a documentary in TV, like a small article in a newspaper, like a conference, like a talk that is given in a school or university, can inspire and spark young people to be attracted by STEM and be attracted by space. And that's very important. But then the question is, now what? Okay, I'm very much interested, but maybe in my country, and I'm very lucky, I'm from a country that had some space industry, but maybe in the country that this kid is growing, there is no space industry, and there is not even thoughts about creating a space industry. And that's why this initiative is so important, the Access to Space for All initiative, because it provides opportunities to actually develop those capabilities. And from a country that, or institutions in a country that don't have experience in space, to grow that experience bigger and to actually be able to develop the space sector in particular countries. And I'm flattered when I receive letters or emails or postcards from people that is participating in that program, because I see the impact of that program. I mean, when I've received, for instance, this patch here, it's Quetzal-1. It was a satellite that was launched, the first satellite of Guatemala that was launched thanks to the Access to Space for All initiative. And I mean, this for me is a very emotive moment. No? It's very emotional. Or getting a postcard that is coming from Mauritius, and it has two stamps. I don't know if you can see that. There are two stamps that have been created in Mauritius devoted to a satellite that they have launched this year, thanks to one of the activities, one of the opportunities that we have under Access to Space for All, which is called KiboQ, in partnership with JAXA. So all those opportunities are providing more wood to the spark, to the initial spark that can be created by a conference, by a talk, by watching TV, a documentary, or by reading a newspaper. And that's how I started, actually. So it's not that I'm saying something because I want to say something. It's because I experienced that. That spark, I was able to continue and to grow that spark in my career. I was very lucky. I think life is a lot of luck. You have to take into account the luck, but you also have to take the opportunities that are in front of you. And I started working more seriously in space. After my university degree, I finished the university. I was working in the university as an assistant, and I was going to a conference. And in that conference, the poster that I was presenting was next to a poster that a person from NASA was presenting. And I discussed with that person. And later on, I was able to go to NASA for a summer to actually research more there. So those opportunities and being passionate about what you would like to achieve, I think those are the key ingredients to be successful. And opportunities today you have. You have the initiative of the United Nations Access to Space for All that provides you the opportunity to actually experience space with your own hands. But there are others, and Malek was referring to the Space for You essay competition, and you will have winners of Access to Space for All today explaining about their experiences. So what I think we all need is to continue providing the young generations actually those sparks, because we need space today, and we are going to need space much more in the future. I like to say that space is the internet of today. Actually, it's not the internet of tomorrow. It's already the internet of today. There are so many things that are powered by space that we are using space even without noticing it. So space is becoming is already very relevant. It's becoming more and more relevant. So I hope that this webinar will help to spark the curiosity of some of the people that is attending to pursue a space career, and you can count on the work that we are doing in the office for that. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jorge. Very, very nice to hear your story. Happy that you became my colleague, and even though you couldn't become an astronaut, but no, thank you for sharing this personal account. Very much appreciated. And now let's try to go back to Susan. So, Susan, apologies for before, but I think now you're able to connect.
Yes, I am.
Thank you, Susan. Please go ahead.
The telescope has been around for more than 400 years, and yet so many people haven't had a chance to look through one, especially where I come from in Kenya. The traveling telescope is trying to change that. My name is Susan Murabana, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of the Traveling Telescope. I got into astronomy and interested in space as a young adult after finishing school and in my 20s. And it was looking through a telescope that sparked that interest for me. I looked through a telescope and I saw Saturn and its rings, and that changed my perspective, my interest, and what I wanted to do. But I also wanted to share what I saw with school kids in my country. I also wanted to set up a company that was sustainable and that would survive irrespective of funding or not. So I happened to meet my husband during an eclipse trip in Kenya, and we set up the Traveling Telescope with the aim of getting people to look through the telescope and appreciating what's in the night sky. Kenya is a unique country in that it's right at the equator, and that means everything looks really nice when it's overhead, the moon and the planets. In fact, yesterday we were in a lodge and we're looking at Saturn and Jupiter and Venus and the moon, and just giving people a chance to look through the outer bodies and appreciate their own planet really, really gets me excited. How do we do this? We go around, just like the name of our company, with a big 12-inch telescope. I can't carry it myself. It's heavy. And we take it around. When we set it up in a field, at a school, or in a lodge, we get so many people around it, obviously not now because of the pandemic. And it becomes the star of the night. Everyone wants to connect to the telescope and look up and tell us stories about the sky. Even as young as 2-year-old kids want to tell you about the moon. And funny enough, like now, Venus looks like a crescent moon to young kids, and they keep saying that's the moon when they look through it. But that spark, I think the previous speakers have talked about it, that inspiration that you get from imagining what's out there is what we try to do. I got involved because, as I said, I hadn't looked through a telescope before, and I was wowed when I looked through one. But I also strongly believe that education and science is what is going to take our continent forward. And how to get people more interested in science is to get them to dream about what they can be and what they can do, to dream about being astronauts, and maybe not even becoming astronauts, but playing a role when they choose their careers, getting into mathematical fields or science fields, could shape the future of our continent. The challenges we face, obviously, is we have expensive equipment. Not only do we have a big telescope, not like the one here that I have, we have a much bigger one that you carry around. And we don't have any companies in Kenya that manufacture telescopes or within the continent. And then we've also just recently built a planetarium out of bamboo. The dome is built out of bamboo in an effort to demonstrate that we are keen to use sustainable solutions to the problems we have. So both these things are very expensive to access and also very expensive to replace. We've set up our company in a way that we promote Kenya as an astrotourism destination. I talked earlier about how we have these beautiful dark skies. We're right at the equator, and most of the lodges. So Kenya is mostly known for its wildlife and its beaches, and most of the lodges where all the wild animals are in very dark places. So if you've been to Kenya or you've watched any of the documentaries about safaris in Africa, they are the big 5 that people look for. We've also done that. Our product is called the Star Safari, and we have the big 5 in the sky. Now, in these areas where we have the lodges, we have local communities, and the local communities are very connected to the wildlife and the night sky. And mostly when we take our telescopes, they really bring in a lot of traditional sky knowledge, which is a nice way to have buy-in from the community. Then obviously, so astrotourism is our business model, and then education is where we get the drive from, going into schools, getting them to enter planetarium or to look through the telescope. In fact, I believe that, and I hope that, I think that every kid should at least have a lesson under the night sky at least once in a lifetime, with or without a telescope. Just that's an observatory for you to explore and get inspired and to think and to, become a scientist and to wonder and to ask questions. So we do that. We go to schools in an effort to inspire the future generations of our continent into science. My advice for anyone who'd like to get into the space industry or who's interested is, just be patient and persistent. I started without much. It was very difficult to convince my parents because I quit a job to do what we do as a traveling telescope. But it's the longer picture. I had seen the longer term in terms of trying to inspire people, especially young people, into science through astronomy. And I have stories from young kids who, now become science students and have written back to me and my colleagues on LinkedIn that they were actually inspired after looking through the telescope. Early this year, obviously, we were all affected with the pandemic, and as a company, we couldn't do the things we normally did. And so early this year, we got an invitation to take our telescope to one of the lodges. And when we got there, we found out that it was Madonna, the celebrity musician, pop star. And we were very excited. I was starstruck. But I hardly spoke when she came to look through the telescope. And the whole time, I was just thinking, when she looked through and her reaction was exactly the same as a really poor kid from rural Kenya who's looked through the telescope. Surely and truly, space is for all, whether it's a rural kid from Kenya or a very rich person. We hope that by looking through the telescope, we can work together. By looking up, we can work together and appreciate what our role is here on Earth and support each other, irrespective of where we come from. So I'm very excited that I've been given this platform to talk about something I really, really, really value and I'm very passionate about. And I hope that I get more opportunity to reach more kids. So far, we've reached hundreds of thousands of kids in Kenya and Tanzania, and we want to keep going as much as we can. Thank you very much once more.
Thank you very much, Susan, for this very beautiful story and for the work that you do. Really, like clearly bringing, these opportunities to children and young people, and not only. It's very inspiring. So thank you very much for sharing this story. I'll come back after with a couple more questions. Okay, so let's try and go to our next speaker. So Jose Eduardo Mendoza Torres. Let's see if he's with us.
Yes, Veronica, I'm here. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Shall we screen your presentation?
Yes, please, if you can share it.
Okay, I will ask Lisa if she could actually do that. Perfect, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Good morning and good afternoon, everybody. I'm a researcher in the field of astronomy at the National Institute of Astrophysics, Optics, and Electronics at Mexico. And I coordinate a team that has been awarded to install an instrument at the China Space Station to map the land temperature. Our instrument is called infrared platform for Earth observations. First of all, I want to thank to China Manned Space Agency and the United Nations Office for Outer Space Affairs. Thank you very much. Our story is very short in this field. We have made some prototypes, laboratory prototypes to experiment with satellite devices, but only in laboratory. So really, this is just the beginning of us in this field, but it is very, very, very important for us. Also, we have made workshops and other activities for students, for middle and high school students. How this project impact us? Really, it is a dream came true, where we are learning a lot. And we want to share the experience we have acquiring with the teachers and students of our country and abroad. It is very, very nice and interesting project, and to have the possibility of installing an instrument is really, really a dream. But it is very important also to pay attention to the present conditions here in my country, in Mexico, because we have few facilities for space technology. It is only at the beginning. On the other side, frequently the students do not handle well physics and math concepts. So the traditional methods to study these fields, these exact and other exact sciences, are not good enough to make students become interested. And in general, our students avoid to study them. However, in OECD, which is the Organization for the Economic Development and Cooperation survey, it was found that 41% of teenagers in Mexico want to be scientists because they like space, science, and technology, and astronomy. So it is something like a window to science for the students. And we have made work in reaching middle and high school students, and I have mentioned we have made material and some activities here in the second please, the second page, Lisa, please. Lisa. The second slide, please, Lisa.
Maybe there is a problem with the slide. Maybe, let's see. Oh.
Okay.
Coming, thank you.
Okay, here we have some images of some material that we have made and that we use at schools and parks for students and for children to review some math concepts that, as I have already mentioned, children and teenagers usually don't like. Also, we have made another project, which is the estimation of the Earth radius. Here in the left side, we have a diagram of the Earth being illuminated by the sun. The light rays are represented with the arrows on the left, and we can see how the shadow 1 is shorter than shadow 2 due to the Earth curvature. Then students measure the length shadow of a mast at the time around noon to identify the shortest shadow length, which corresponds to the shadow at the sun culmination. So when it is highest at the sky, it means at noon. And here in the middle image, we have participation of some teams. Of a team, here is only one team, where they are measuring the shadow around noon, and on the right side we have the plot of the shadow length with time. And then we can identify the minimum shadow and to estimate using the measurements at different sites, at different latitudes, of the Earth radius. This is very interesting for them. So these are some examples of activities that we have made, and this project to install an instrument at the China Space Station really increased our possibilities. This, first of all, will allow to map the land temperature and the atmospheric opacity, which is important for the study of the way how climate change is influencing the weather during storms, which is the scientific target. But also it gives us the possibility to involve other researchers, teachers, and students in the analysis of the data. The activities in our project is a way to help the students to improve their academic experience in this field. But also, and it is important, I think, we are making and we will do these activities in a larger basis. Because in Mexico, students of all levels need to reinforce their level in physics and mathematics. And these dynamics of studying mathematical concepts with exercises, formal exercises in space science makes easier for them to learn such concepts, basic concepts, but for them is more interesting and easier than with traditional methods. So students are motivated because they can hear about this kind of project directly from people who are involved in these projects. So it is important that we, who already have been awarded, can come to the schools and talk to students, because talking about these projects motivates them to apply more at their studies, and also to study engineering and other sciences, exact sciences, I mean, which are very important for the development of technology, and of course for the development of a country. So the project for the China Space Station will allow us to extend these activities and reach more students, more sites in Mexico, and to do more material. And I think, as some of colleagues have already mentioned, that a better academic level helps in reducing inequalities in both between countries and between persons. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for telling us your story and bringing this very interesting example. And of course, congratulations for this incredible achievement. Let's go to our last speaker here as well. I should congratulate also Carlos for winning the UN-Japan cooperation, the Kibo Cube. So congratulations on that as well. I'll now give you the floor if looking forward to hearing more about your story and your project.
Well, thank you very much, Veronica, and thank you, of course, to UNOSA, to the United Nations Office for Outer Space Affairs for this invitation. And thank you very much for also your wishes, your good wishes in our project that we are now receiving the support from the United Nations and also from the Japanese Aerospace Exploration Agency. Well, let me first introduce myself. My name is Carlos Enrique Alvarado. I am the coordinator of the Aerospace Commission of the Costa Rican Society of Engineers and Architects of Costa Rica. I am also the coordinator of the project for strengthening capacities in science and technology policies in the Central American Integration System member countries. Which is a political integration entity composed by Panama, Costa Rica, Nicaragua, El Salvador, Honduras, Guatemala, Belize, and Dominican Republic. I have more than 10 years working in the development of the capacities of the space sector in Central America. My life commitment, if we want to put it in short, is to create an entire generation of Central Americans with the technical and scientific capacities required for facing the upcoming challenges, or actually the current challenges that we have to face in climate change, and also, of course, joining the Central American region to the future cosmic society. I am convinced that development of space capacities is a matter for survival in Central America. So this is why I have started this quest, as I before mentioned, more than 10 years ago. There are two figures in my country that motivates me, supports me, and also inspire me to join in the space sector. First was Dr. Franklin Chang Diaz, Costa Rican American astronaut who has flew to space more than seven times. Actually, he shares the record with another astronaut in time going to space. Mr. Franklin Chan is like the role model for many Costa Ricans, and he also supports our efforts since the beginning. Also, Sandra Kaufman, which is also a Costa Rican woman scientist that currently works at NASA. She's also a role model and inspiration for the new generations of actually, especially for girls and women to want to get into scientific and technology and engineers careers. So they have also motivated us from a long time ago. And actually, there is a third person that is Franklin Chang Diaz's brother, Ronald Chang Diaz, who was the person that proposed me in 2009 to start with this this initiative that we originally launched, that was the development of the first Costa Rican and the first Central American satellite, Project Irasu. We started with that project in 2009. We started with the creation of an NGO that was the Central American Association for Aeronautics and Space. We also started working with the different sectors of our country, government, academia, civil society, the business, also the company, the private sector. So it was a very long path that required for us to convince them first, to create also the technical knowledge. By that time in our country, there were very few initiatives related to the space sector, and actually developing a satellite was like seen by that time like a crazy idea, because people didn't believe that our country will have the capacity to do something like that. So as I explained at the beginning, it was a very, very tough path to create the conditions, but we thrived, and we in 2018, in April 2nd, 2018, we finally launched the first Costa Rica satellite to the International Space Station, and it was deployed in May 11, 2018. So this is like the background of the next project, because we, as I mentioned before, this was a Costa Rica project, but when we started with this idea, we were aware that in terms of facing the challenges that we need as a region, we need to share the knowledge, and we need to start, working in collaboration among countries in our region. So this is why before launching the first Costa Rican satellite, I was, how can I explain it, like kind of concerned, because I felt like there was something missing for the future. What we will do with this knowledge? So this is why in 2018, while I was actually doing my master studies at Harvard, I remember that I was with a Honduran friend, and I was talking to him about the Costa Rican project and the idea to launch the Costa Rican satellite, and he said, "Oh, I would wish to have something similar in Honduras." And I said, "Okay, well, that sounds like a great idea. Let's try to do that too." That will be our second step. We can use the knowledge and the capacity that we already got from the first project, and then try to also replicate this experience in Honduras, but also try to work with in more collaboration with other countries. What do you think? He said, "Yeah, it sounds great." But I'm talking about something that happened 3 years ago. By that time, it was also again like an idea similar than in 2009 when we launched the idea of the Costa Rican satellite. And for me, it's incredible now to say that Project Morazan it's a reality. it has already, you know, all the technical design done. Actually, we are already past the PDR, the preliminary design review, and now we have all the actors joined in our project. And thanks also for the support of UNOSA and JAXA. We have now we are now very close to launch our satellite. Morazan is a Central American integration project for the development of a nano satellite or a CubeSat made by professionals and students from Honduras, Guatemala, and Costa Rica. The project is the official winner of the 5th round international competition of the United Nations Office for Other Space Affairs and the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency, KIBOQ. It has 3 main missions. First, since Central America is a region that has a high exposure to disasters and with territories classified among the highest risk in the world, where particularly floods are one of the most frequent threats. You know, this is something that is happening more and more frequent due to climate change, again, as all of us know. In response to these regional needs, the Morazan project proposes to face common challenges using space technology through a scientific mission, developing a proof of concept of an early warning system for floods. And the system will be able to operate in remote areas with little or no access to communications. It will have 3 watersheds of study that will be Samala in Guatemala, Matina in Costa Rica, and Ulua in Honduras. The sites will be instrumented by also professionals from 3 universities of the region: the University of Costa Rica, the National Autonomous University of Honduras, and the San Carlos University of Guatemala. The second objective is an emergency mission that will develop a system for subsequent communications, and that will be also affected by during and after the event. And the system will be able to send messages using, you know, the satellite has a means of communication. Basically, it will be a relay satellite. And the third will be an educational mission that will also try to motivate and inspire the young generations. The satellite will have an onboard camera that will take photos of Earth from space, and it will be relayed them to Earth so that children and young people in the region will be able to communicate with the satellite, download the information, and appreciate them for themselves. As I mentioned before, we have 3 universities participating. We have also the support of the Costa Rican Society of Engineers and Architects, and of course, the support also of the Central American Integration System General Secretariat, which also was the entity that oversees all these efforts that we are now doing. Now we are in the final phase of development of the designs. By 2022 and 2023, the test and launch of the Central American satellite, the first one built with the cooperation of 3 countries, will be carried out. So for us, this project represents a paragon model of collaboration among emerging nations in the space field. And we think that we are a region that has the right to dream of a better future. And we really invite all of you to join us in this dream. And of course, we really thank UNOSA and JAXA for the support, because this helped us a lot to close the gaps that are still, you know, maintaining in our world to get access to space. So thank you very much, and any question, of course, will be more than welcome.
Thank you, Carlos. Really, thank you very much. And well, actually, your dream is becoming true. So it's more than dreaming; it's actually making things real. So thank you very much to our speakers for sharing their stories and telling us a bit more how they are benefiting from access to space, as well as how they are providing access to space. We have 15 minutes left, and we had a couple of questions that we wanted to ask to our speakers before concluding the event. And here I would have one question, and I would like to address these questions to Beatrice and Susan. And the question would be, what concrete challenges are you facing in your daily work when trying to bring the benefits of space to everyone, to other people who you otherwise wouldn't have that chance? So, Beatrice, what are the challenges that you face?
Well, one of the challenge to separate, to change, or to modify is the everyday life connected with the idea that the women cannot do everything. And this is an everyday thing to put on the table, to show that the access to the space, the access to the science and technology is a common work, is a challenge for everything and for everyone, and we are all equals. And as I say, in each case, we need to teach the new generations. The idea to the access cannot start never at the university or college level. It's late. We need to include the people from the very beginning at home, first of all, and of course at the school and at the high school. To change the world, we need to change our own mind. We need to change our own attitudes. So this is not solved. The situation of the inclusion of the women are not solved, as the inclusion of the disabled people is not solved neither. So we are not a minority. We are a lot, we are half of the world, but we have still problems. Imagine the disabled people, which are not the number is low, that the number of women in the planet. We need to change our own life, our near neighborhood, and to show that it's possible, to give the tools to permit the people to do things. If you don't give the tools and teach how to use the tools, it's not a good end for the story. So each one, we, all of us, and all our contacts need to know that this is everyday action, is the life of everyone, and we need to put in the same boat, on the same boat, which is the planet, the Earth planet, all the community. And the inclusion is to teach and to learn from the others. So it's a two-way road all the time, and accept the diversity, accept the differences, accept we are the same species, and we have some differences, cultural differences, but the purpose is for all the same, to live better, to be happy, to produce changes in our life, and to make a better world.
Thank you, Beatrice. Susan, what about you? What are, some of the challenges you face in your work when you're trying to, bring these opportunities to people who wouldn't usually have them?
Yeah, thank you. The obvious challenges is I'm trying to access as many kids as I can, and some of them are from really remote places. So obviously having access to funds to travel across and reach all these kids is something that is a huge challenge for us, because we have to go on very difficult roads at places that are really hard to reach and sometimes really far. And that is where I get a lot of joy from, reaching out to schools that are hardly able to get anything out there. And sometimes you see it when we set the telescope up, the teachers, it could be cloudy, but they want to take a selfie with the telescope. It's just, and the kids and the excitement, even just telling them they've seen a shooting star and start screaming, or showing them the laser pointer. So reaching more of those schools, I have so many schools to reach out to, and not just schools or kids in the also kids who have, you know, visual impairment problems and things like that. How do we work with communities? So just reaching out to places like that, because I really want to get everyone to look through the telescope and to visit the planetarium, because I think it's one of the coolest things you can give us access to people. On a personal level as well, I don't have many people like me in Kenya, women who are in this field. I'm always around the men. And I feel this huge role that I have to inspire young girls to get into science, to get into doing things like this. I was lucky. I had parents who were very, very supportive. I grew up in a family with boys and girls, and my parents never ever favored one gender over another. They supported all of us, educated all of us, and were very keen in what we wanted to do. And I know that is not the situation for most girls in remote places in Kenya. Some are denied education. Some cannot go to school because they're going through their menstrual period, for example. So I feel that's a personal role I have to play, to reach out to these girls and to you know, try and, you know, help them, not necessarily become astronomers or astronauts, but just to help them access education, which is basic, which is something I never thought of, that there would be people who are denied. But in my country, in my area, there is that discrimination based on the gender of a kid. So yeah, there's obviously the remoteness of the place, funding, and obviously reaching out to communities that are forgotten, young girls in communities that are very remote, or people who have challenges, physical, visual impairment, things like that. And I know somehow we will get to do more of that. I'm confident, because in the last few years, Kenya now has a space agency. That is very exciting, because when we went to schools and we talked to kids, and then they got very inspired and say, I'd like to go work for NASA. Now we can tell them, no, you don't have to work for NASA. You can work for the Kenyan Space Agency. So just seeing how things are changing and shaping up in the continent, in Kenya, gives me hope that there'll be change and things will be better for the future generation of our leaders.
Thank you, Susan. Thanks a lot for highlighting these challenges. And anyway, again, your interesting work. We still have a few minutes left, and I try to ask a question to the rest of our speakers. And one of those would be maybe, and on this maybe I could ask Carlos to briefly reply. What helped you to enter the space sector, or anyway, so what helped you to enter the space sector, and would there have been something that could have made your entry in the space sector more easily? So how did you enter the sector? Was it difficult, and you know, could we make it less difficult? Briefly, well, I know it could take you could probably use hours, but
well, I will say that something that was determinant for me to get into the space sector was, first, the international collaboration networks, my participation in the International Astronomical Congress, also the tools and the info that we originally got from organizations like UNOSA, for instance, that they are constantly sharing technological info and opportunities to get involved into space. So I think those were the factors that were very important for me to get into space. And of course, the mentorship of some determinant figures like Franklin Shandia, Sandra Kaufman, that were examples for me. And I will say that for thriving and to try to create more leverage for those opportunities, we need more presence and more participation in international cooperation opportunities, from the spacefaring nations to the emerging space countries. Because, as I mentioned before, this is a global challenge, and creating and having space capacities is a matter of survival.
Yeah, thanks a lot on that. And in relation to that, slightly different though, and I wanted to ask that to Eduardo. How do you see, what are there any instruments that can bring individuals and communities closer to space? So how can we really bring communities closer to space?
Well, I think that the main problem is that the leaders of the world and of many countries are making a mistake in not giving opportunities for many people, and in particular for many girls. And coming to instruments, giving opportunity to all of them will give new ideas. This, I think, is the main problem. For example, in my country, for girls that live in the mountains or in suburbs of many cities, they represent a big potential for science, for technology, for industry, and in general for the economy. So many of these girls could come very good scientists, surgeons, and other specialists. And of course, each of us will like, if required, that we or our relatives will go through a surgery with very good prepared specialists. That could be a girl that now lives in the mountains and who has been forgotten for many years. So I think the main problem is not a particular device, a particular instrument. Now our instrument for us is very, very, very important, but we want to include students of different levels who really sometimes give very important ideas. So I think the problem is of sharing this experience and to include more people in the development of these instruments. Veronica.
Thank you very much, Eduardo. So we have a few more minutes, and here there are like a few, two questions, actually one questions that I would like to ask to our remaining speakers. So it's Jorge and Malek. And this is a bit more like to, let's say, conclude our event. And it's I would like to hear from you what advice you would give to somebody who would like to enter the space sector. And so maybe, well, we have a very young perspective that is Malek's perspective, and of course, Jorge as a more experienced professional who has been in the space sector for a long time now. And so what is the advice you would give? Maybe, I'll ask Jorge first, and then we close with Malek, who opened at the beginning. Jorge, what is your advice?
Thank you, Veronica. Thank you for the more experience instead of old. I appreciate that. Actually, my advice is to try. I mean, it probably sounds like simple, but it is not. I mean, the story that I was telling before, I had that opportunity, that poster next to a NASA person. If I wouldn't have there to talk to that person, probably I would be a different person today. So you have to try. I mean, approach the people that you think might be helpful for you. I have been approached by people, and I have been also helping people in actually guiding them in what could be a career path for them. So try. I mean, the emails today is so easy to access and find emails of people, people interest, the projects that people are carrying out. So why not to ask? I mean, there are social networks, there are a lot of tools that are available. So just try. That's the try and persevere, and I'm sure that they will be able to get it. Another thing that I think Carlos was mentioning is networks. Access the networks that exist in your country, in your local region. Those are very, very useful. I mean, maybe there are already people that is trying to go along that path, and Zika is an example. I mean, Carlos was explaining very well how they are going through the different stages of putting satellites in orbit, and maybe talking to the regional organization in your country or a local institution in your country, maybe you can get hints of where to go next. And maybe there is a project that they are already undertaking and you can join that project. So try, approach, and network. Those would be my advice.
Thank you, Jorge. Let's see if Malek has something else that she would like to add.
Yeah, kind of just to bounce off, my first advice would be, you know, just go for it and do it, you know. I think that I would say, first of all, come up with a game plan, and that game plan have a way of approaching it, a way of conquering it, because it is possible. Find what you're interested in and come up with a proposal on how you believe that it might be impactful on the community to the global level. I would also say keep an eye out for any local organizations that are either hosting competitions or hiring or looking for interns. There's social media at the tips of our fingers that we could take advantage of. There's always, you know, opportunities being advertised there, and they're there, they exist. There are so many opportunities like internships and competitions that are for also all ages, big and small, if you're interested at all in entering the space sector. It's all about keeping your eyes open about the opportunities that are around you, because this is exactly how my research started. I ended up working with DreamUp and NanoRacks to get my research at the ISS. And, you know, DreamUp is an organization that provides an opportunity for students to gain access to space all around the world. You could, you know, this is more veered towards students that potentially might be watching this, but you could check their website and stay up to date with their news. Same with UNUSA. UNUSA is a very good place to start with looking for opportunities like these, you know, space for youth. You never know. So it's all about keeping your eyes open, staying aware of what opportunities are available for you and around you, because there are so many. It's just all about putting in the initiative to find those. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Malek, and thank you very much to everybody for sharing your stories, your personal accounts, and I hope that our attendees today could really, like, you know, by listening to your story, being inspired, and it's just like it was really interesting to hear all of you, and it's really a story where you start from nothing and you all achieved in your different ways with your, you know, different path, something that is really incredible. So really, thank you very much for sharing this. And indeed, here at UNUSA, one of our aim is to contribute to bring the benefits of space to everyone, everywhere in the world, and for sure access to space for all. As Jorge was mentioning, there are many opportunities there, space for youth competition. So yeah, I would definitely invite you all to keep an eye on our website, on our social media at UNUSA. And yeah, continue following our events. And really, I'd like to close the meeting now.